The golden lights of the Grand Lorraine Hotel shimmered across the marble floors as midnight whispered through empty. A millionaire named Ethan Drake stood silently in his penthouse suite, watching a maid move with quiet grace. Her name tag read, Zoe. She was meticulous, almost too perfect. Then suddenly her phone rang, a foreign sound breaking the stillness. Ethan turned his head as she answered softly in fluent Dutch. The tone of her voice changed, sharp yet elegant. In that instant, he knew something about her wasn't ordinary at all. Your one click can keep stories like this alive. Like, share, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon to stand with the voices that matter. Zoe was known as the most disciplined maid in the hotel, always on time, polite, and invisible to the luxury guests who passed her by. Her pale skin and striking gray eyes often made others assume she came from privilege, but she carried herself with quiet humility. Few noticed the shadows beneath her calm. The other staff whispered rumors that she lived alone in the staff quarters and never spoke of her past. Some said she once worked for diplomats, others that she ran from something unspeakable, yet none dared to ask. Each morning, Zoe began before dawn, arranging rooms for guests who never learned her name. The world saw her as ordinary, another uniform in blue and white, but inside she carried the weight of something buried deep. She avoided eye contact with men like Ethan Drake, the kind of man whose presence filled a room with unspoken power. But fate has strange ways of revealing secrets. That night, when her phone rang and her voice slipped into Dutch, a door she thought was locked forever quietly opened again. Ethan's sharp instincts had built his empire. He had seen deception in boardrooms, yet something in Zoe's reaction was different. Not guilt, but fear. He couldn't understand why a maid in New York would speak Dutch with such precision. He found himself strangely curious, unable to let it go. When she left the room, he checked the cleaning log, memorizing her full name. It was simple, Zoe Hartman, but something about it rang faintly familiar, like a name he had seen long ago in his father's files. Over the next week, Ethan observed Zoe from a distance. She worked floor to floor with mechanical rhythm, never missing a detail. Yet there was something haunting in her movements, like someone running from her own reflection. The hotel's gossip only deepened his curiosity. They said she never accepted tips, never went out after work, and once tore up a letter with trembling hands. Ethan's mind began weaving possibilities. A criminal, a spy, or perhaps something more personal. He didn't realize yet that his obsession was about to expose a buried truth about his own family. He used his power discreetly. One call to the hotel manager gave him access to employee files. Zoe's background check showed she had no family listed, no emergency contact, no social media trail. Her work history began only 2 years ago, perfectly clean, too clean. Beneath the records lay something erased. Ethan's curiosity turned to unease. He felt drawn to her, yet an unexplainable guilt crawled under his skin. He dreamed of his father's study filled with documents from the Dutch branch of their old shipping company, a company once accused of exploiting foreign workers decades ago. One evening, Zoe found Ethan waiting in the corridor outside the suite she was assigned to clean. His cold gaze lingered, and though he said nothing, she felt his questions hanging in the air. When he left, she trembled. That night she packed a small bag as if ready to run, but something stopped her. The faint hope that this time truth might not destroy her. She stayed, praying that the past would remain where she buried it. But the past was already awake, and it was walking straight toward her. Ethan confronted Zoe after hours in the empty ballroom. The silence between them felt alive. He told her he knew she had lied on her documents. Zoe didn't deny it. Instead, she met his eyes for the first time, and in them, he saw centuries of quiet suffering. She revealed that her real name was Zoe van Hartman, daughter of a Dutch activist who disappeared after exposing illegal practices tied to Drake's father's company years ago. Her mother had died in poverty after being silenced. Zoe fled to America under a false name, seeking answers and working in the very hotel owned by the Drake's investment group. Ethan's breath faltered. He remembered his father's guarded warnings about old mistakes overseas. The truth hit him like a storm. His wealth was built on injustice that ruined lives like Zoe's family. The call she had taken in Dutch wasn't from home. but from an investigator confirming new evidence linking his late father to those crimes. For years, she had cleaned the rooms of the empire that had stolen everything from her. Now she stood before the heir, unafraid, her secret exposed, yet her dignity intact. Ethan's mind spun between denial and awakening. The woman he had watched with curiosity now mirrored every sin his bloodline carried. The silence between them cracked under the weight of truth. He tried to speak, to justify, but no words could cleanse what was done. Zoe simply said she wanted him to know, to see her not as a maid but as the face of the past he inherited. Then she turned to leave, her footsteps echoing like judgment itself. The next morning, news erupted. Ethan Drake publicly resigned from his board positions, releasing files that proved the corruption his father had hidden. Zoe's mother's name appeared among the victims finally acknowledged by history. The world called it a scandal, but for Zoe, it was liberation. She left the Grand Lorraine with nothing but peace. She walked through the city streets under soft rain, free for the first time, not because justice had arrived, but because silence had ended. Ethan watched her departure from afar, unsure if redemption was possible, but knowing the truth had reshaped him. The empire he inherited began to crumble, yet in that ruin, he found clarity. Racism and privilege were not just systems, they were inherited blindness, passed through generations until someone dared to open their eyes. Zoe had forced him to see, and though it cost him everything, it awakened something more valuable than power: conscience. As night fell again over the hotel, the room where it all began stood empty. The echo of her Dutch voice lingered in the air, reminding those who listened that every empire built on silence eventually meets the sound of truth. And somewhere in another city, Zoe smiled faintly, whispering to herself that even the smallest voice can shake the walls of the mighty.